In the complex tapestry of African colonial history, few events have had such a profound and lasting impact on ethnic groups as the 1961 Nigeria-Cameroon referendum. This pivotal moment in West African history reshaped borders, divided communities, and left an indelible mark on the Igbo people, one of the largest ethnic groups in Nigeria. Nakwa Africa Nile. Hello and welcome to my African Village TV, your guide to the hidden treasures of Africa. We have been exploring a hidden gem in Africa, a hidden treasure, Igbo. Though no longer hidden, but anyị ka na-enyochakwa n'emume anyị nke anyị kpọrọ My Story, My Legacy. Fekpatalu, certain set of people had to scatter ndị Igbo across Africa, around the world, and even inside Nigeria and its borders.
Now, I'm using Anyoma as an example. For thousands of years, the storyline has been that my people are descendants of Benin. What that means, that word descendant means that I'm automatically a Benin person. It's not Igbo. That's what it means. And I know many of you want to twist it, but that's what the English word means. When you say I'm a descendant of Benin, you're saying that my ancestors are Benin, and I'm just a descendant, generation after them. But every evidence, including the oral stories from the Benin kingdoms, has proven that my forefathers, who is Ezechime, are Igbos.
British and German colonial presence. The roots of this referendum trace back to the late 19th century when European powers carved up Africa. Britain and Germany emerged as the primary colonial powers in this region. Germany controlled modern-day Cameroon, while Britain held Nigeria. The border between these colonies cut through traditional Igbo lands. Today, we are speaking French, English, German, Dutch, Portuguese, Spanish across African continent by African citizens as their language. So when we talk about colonization, when we refer to Berlin Conference, when we talk in these lines, where we are coming from and where we are headed as a people and as a continent. And in this context, we are still looking into the case why Igbo is being scattered all over. As the winds of change swept across Africa in the 1950s, the question of independence arose. Nigeria was on the path to independence, but the fate of the British Cameroons remained uncertain. The United Nations, which had replaced the League of Nations, decided that a referendum should be held to determine the future of these territories, referring to a part of Cameroon and a part of Nigeria. I want you to follow this closely because most Nigerians are ignorant of this. Most Cameroonians are ignorant of this. Most Africans are ignorant of this history. How did Igbo come into this? On February 11, 1961, they faced a choice: join newly independent Nigeria or reunite with French Cameroon, which had gained independence in 1960. The results were split. Northern Cameroons voted to join Nigeria from the northern side, while southern Nigerians, pay attention, which included a significant Igbo population voted to join Cameroon. The outcome of this referendum had far-reaching consequences for the Igbo people, fundamentally altering their social, cultural, and political landscape. That's another scattering right there. We'll be back shortly.
Sun is shining bright, yeah. Fortuna in my hand. Joyful days and nights, yeah. Life is feeling great. Fortuna vibes, man. Feel the summer breeze. Dancing in the daylight underneath the trees.
Now let's dive deeper into this impact. First, it impacted the territorial setting of Igbo. The most immediate and visible impact was the physical separation of Igbo communities. The new international border between Nigeria and Cameroon cut through traditional Igbo lands, dividing families, clans, and cultural units that had existed for generations. Villages that once shared close ties found themselves on opposite sides of an international boundary. This division was particularly pronounced in areas like the Cross River region, where Igbo communities had long established settlements. Overnight, these communities were split, with some becoming part of the new Cameroon, while others remained in Nigeria. Chai, but we will do our best to continue to educate our people. Let's look into the cultural fragmentation as a result of this. Ndị Igbo, known for their strong cultural identity and traditions, faced the challenge of maintaining their heritage across an international border. Cultural practices, festivals, and traditional governance systems that once unified Ndị Igbo were now subject to different national policies and influences. In Cameroon, Ndị Igbo fụlụ onwe ha there, wee fụta onwe ha n'imirikiti as a minority group within a predominantly francophone country. This new status put pressure on their ability to maintain their language and customs. Over time, many Cameroonian Igbos had to adapt to French as the official language, potentially eroding their connection to their mother tongue. This is heartbreaking. I don't know what to call it, but this is evil from the pit of hell. How could you? Remember, in one of our series, we spoke about how this scattering, how war, how slavery, how these kind of things can shrink, can put fear on people to a point that they'll let themselves be absorbed into or by a community, thereby leaving behind their languages, leaving behind their cultures, forgetting totally about who they are, and faced with no choice than to behave like the Romans because they found themselves in Rome. The political consequences of the referendum were particularly acute for the Igbos who found themselves in Cameroon. As a minority group in their new country, they often struggled to have their voices heard in national politics. This lack of representation made it challenging to advocate for their specific needs and interests. Whilst in Nigeria, the loss of territory to Cameroon altered the political calculations and representation of the Igbo people within the Federation.
Fortuna juice is the taste of paradise. I got a drink that'll make you feel alive. Sipping on Fortuna juice, it's gonna take you high. Tropical flavor in every single drop. When you taste it, you won't wanna stop. It's like a burst of sunshine in a glass. Fortuna juice.
Reduction in Igbo-dominated areas potentially weaken their political influence on the national stage. Is it beginning to make sense to you? It's not even about the Caliphate area, the northern side that joined the northern side of the Nigeria. It is about the Igbo community. It is about the power of unity that is being threatened here, that is being scattered. Wow, fufu. The unity is no longer there. Even within the setting of Nigeria, a lot of division is ongoing. Can call on this short story. I met a lady in Morocco, a colleague, and the day I saw her name and her last name, I was shocked. I said, are you from Nigeria? Igbo. She laughed and said, a lot of people think she's Igbo. Where are you from? She's from Cameroon. Oh, okay. But the last name, if I mention it on this video, I just want to respect her privacy. My goodness. And we started sharing, talking deeply about these things. Both of us were so amazed at the similarities of our identity as a people. And so families split by the border. Remember, till date, Cameroonians come to UNN Soka to school. A lot of them come to Unical and other institutions in Calabar. And when they stand, especially the southern part, these English-speaking Cameroonians, you will think they are Igbo people. I'm not saying all of them are Igbos, but if you know history, you know what I'm talking about. Families split by the border often maintain ties across national lines, leading to a sense of dual identity. This situation was complicated by different nationality laws and the challenges of cross-border movement. Imirikiti ndị Igbo na Cameroon, while legally Cameroonian, maintained strong emotional and cultural ties to Nigeria. This dual allegiance sometimes led to suspicions of disloyalty from the Cameroonian government, further complicating their integration into Cameroonian society. Can you know the effects of this referendum when it comes to education and language challenges? The education systems in Nigeria and Cameroon diverged significantly after the referendum. Igbo children in Cameroon had to adopt to a French-based education system, which posed challenges for maintaining proficiency in the Igbo language and connection to Igbo culture, which is their target, by the way. In some cases, families made the difficult decisions to send their children across border to Nigeria for education. I just said that a moment ago, hoping to maintain their Igbo heritage. This separation of families for educational purposes added another layer of complexity to the already strained social fabric. Are we talking about land rights and property issues? The new border created significant issues regarding land ownership and property rights. Imirikiti ezinụlọ ndị Igbo who had ancestral lands that now straddled the border faced legal uncertainties. In some cases, people lost access to farmlands and properties that ended up on the other side of the border. These land disputes not only caused economic hardship, but also struck at the heart of Igbo cultural identity, where land is often seen as a sacred connection to ancestors and community. This had also affected migration and displacement. In the years following referendum, there were instances of migration as some Igbos in Cameroon chose to relocate to Nigeria and vice versa. This movement was driven by various factors, including economic opportunities, family reunification, and a desire to live in a more Igbo-centric environment. However, these migrations often came with significant challenges, including issues of citizenship, property rights, and social integration. Igbo migrants sometimes found themselves caught up between two nations, not fully accepted in either. Chai. Well, we're gonna look at the impact of this referendum on traditional governance structures. Ndi Igbo are known for their decentralized system of governance, often centered around village assemblies and titled elders. This division that we're talking about, caused by the referendum, disrupted these traditional structures. Chieftaincies and community leadership roles that once held authority across what became an international border lost influence and legitimacy. This weakening of traditional governance structure had ripple effect on conflict resolution mechanisms, land management practices, and the preservation of cultural heritage. These had also had a psychological and emotional toll. Chai, onye ka ọ ya bụ ọbụlụ. Perhaps one of the most profound yet least visible impacts was the psychological and emotional toll on the Igbo people. The sudden and arbitrary nature of the division left many with a sense of loss, confusion, and betrayal. Families separated by the border experienced ongoing stress and grief. This emotional impact had been passed down through generations, contributing to a collective trauma that continues to shape Ndi Igbo and policies of Ndi Igbo in both Nigeria and Cameroon. Before I go into how, of course I've touched on it, how our language is now dissipated amidst this division, I want to remind us something very quickly. If you're a history student, I'd like you to take your time and research on this. I've stumbled on numerous publications about what I'm about to say. Going through them made lots and lots of sense to me. I'd like you to read about the formation of the NCNC by Nnamdi Azikiwe, Nwanne Nwoke, which means National Congress of Nigeria and Cameroon. Think about it for a moment. Think about it for a moment. And I'm headed somewhere. Remember the Ambazonia side of Cameroon? A chunk of them Bomunai. And even when the NCNC changed from what it used to be to what they changed it to be, just to confuse people, let us review a little bit of how this is gradually, over time, the separation led to the evolution of dialectal differences in the Igbo language spoken in Cameroon versus Nigeria. While mutually intelligible, these differences became markers of the divided heritage of Ndi Igbo. In Cameroon, Ndị na-asụ asụsụ anyị often incorporated French words and phrases into their dialect, while in Nigeria, English influences were more prominent. This linguistic divergence, while subtle, symbolizes the growing cultural gap between the two Igbo communities. This division has complicated efforts to preserve and study Igbo history, historical sites, artifacts, and oral traditions that once formed part of a unified narrative are now split between two countries, each with its own approach to historical preservation and interpretation. This referendum has challenged historians and cultural anthropologists in their efforts to piece together a comprehensive understanding of Igbo heritage and history. In conclusion, the impact of the 1961 referendum on the Igbo people has been profound and multifaceted. It serves as a poignant reminder of how political divisions can have long-lasting effects on ethnic groups, dividing communities, and creating complex challenges that persist for generations. The story of Igbo, split between Nigeria and Cameroon, is a testament to the resilience of cultural identity of the face of geopolitical change and beyond. And in this context of digging through the history of this particular tribe in Africa, Igbo, we'll get to why. We'll get to their whys in a bit. Ka anyị kparịkọtawanụ nkata na comment section. Ọ bụrụ na ị bụ onye Igbo, I'm gonna make this call once again. If you know deep down that you have a link with Ndi Igbo, go ahead, write in the comment if you feel so, and we will be glad. As we discuss this in the comment section, aka bụkwa mmadụ unu, Splendor Ngozi. Bye for now.